In this video, we'll have a look at the preferences of Blender. So here, let's go into the menu Edit here and go to the Preferences, and let's have a look of all these tabs here on the left side here. And so, first of all, we have the interface. Something that can be good here, I have only HD screen, so it will be big here, letters for example. But if you have 4K screens like that, you can use the resolution scale and it will increase the size. So in case you want something more readable, okay. You can manage if you want the splash screen in the beginning here, the user tooltips or things like that. You can play with the editors here and the language. Even if Blender if English is not your first language, I really recommend to use English in the interface, because Blender is made in English and all the shortcuts are made in English. So for example, Control E will be the Edge menu, and maybe in your language it will not work like that. So it's a good way to have something that is related to what it means to be, and it's important to keep it in English like that. You can understand more and yeah, remember more the shortcuts. Here we have the viewport, so you can manage the display here, the quality, everything. We can keep it by default here. We have nothing to change, for example. I don't think so. Here we have the lights and the studio light. So for example, you can manage the editor and how it works in the 3D view. By default, it's very good. We have nothing to change here. We have the matte caps. So the matte caps, it's a kind of lighting setup with an image. You can manage it from here, and you have all the matte caps. So you can import new matte caps if needed, but honestly, by default, you have already good things here, and we will manage that just after. We have the HDRIs here. So the same thing here. By default, you have some HDRIs here that you can manage to have to have kind of good interpretation of the light and the volume of your object. By default, they are here. You can add some here if needed, but honestly, the one that are already by default are good. Here we have the editing tab. Nothing to say really about it. You can manage a few things on ear, say on ear layout here, each layout here, but honestly, everything by default is good. Animation here, the same, everything by default, it's okay. The extension, it's important here. So by default, you see that you can continue offline or allow online access. So the extensions here, it's a new thing in Blender, and I will show you that by going into the website, Blender extensions. Okay. So in blender.org, you will have here a new section. Okay. In the website, you will have the extensions here, and you can download directly new functions into there's extensions here. So you have some add-ons, you have some themes as well if you want new themes, for example, and you can play with that and you can import it directly from Blender. You don't have to go to the website, but here you can allow online access, and here you can see all the things that you can download and install directly, and like that you have really a lot of tools that you can add to Blender like that. Okay, so you have the add-ons, so it will be the one that are by default here in Blender, but we will add some by the extensions menu here. We have the themes as well. By default, you have only Blender Dark and Light. I use the Blender Dark Blender Lite is not for me, honestly, but it depends your preferences, and you can get extensions. You can get here from extensions. You have the themes that you can download directly. For example, if I want the retro gray here, I install it directly and I have it directly there, and I can come back to the Blender dark here. So it can be a good way to manage add-ons here with the extensions. And into the input, if you don't have numpad into your keyboard, and I really recommend you to have numpad in your keyboard, on your keyboard, if you make 3D, it will be really important, especially in Blender, because all the views shortcuts are in the numpad. So if you don't have, you can emulate it, and all the numbers on top of the letters will be used like that, like the numpad. But honestly, the best is to use the numpad. Same thing for the mouse here. If you don't have the third button that is used here for the navigation, if I use the third button here, I can just turn around the object. You can use it. You can use the emulate, and it will be the alt left click mouse. But honestly, again, it's the best to have a third button. Almost all the mouses have that, so it shouldn't be a problem. You have the possibility to use a tablet, that is especially good for texturing and sculpting. But for this training, as I know that a lot don't have any tablet, I will not use tablets. Maybe just a little for sculpting, for showing you, but honestly, I prefer to do it just by mouth, and like this you can train yourself. And if you are really interested in this task like sculpting or texturing, I really recommend you to use a tablet. So here I have the navigation. By default, everything is good. I really recommend you to remove maybe the auto perspective. So why I remove the auto perspective? Because by default, it can be a little disturbing, and it will change your view, especially if you work in non-perspective view. So I really recommend you to remove this one. It can be disturbing. The key map, everything is by default is good. You have all the shortcuts that you will use in Blender. You can change it. By default, we will not change it for the purpose of this training, but honestly, you can really change it, especially if you come from another software or something like that. So it can be really useful here. You have the system. Here it's good to manage a few things. For example, especially the cycles render devices. So here it's where you will put your graphic card in. So it will depend of the brand you have. The two first are for NVIDIA settings, NVIDIA cards. The third here, it's for this one, it's for Radeon here. So other GPUs, and here you have the Intel GPUs as well. Okay, so AMD, the first two one are for NVIDIA, this one AMD, and this one for Intel. In my case, I have NVIDIA, and the last generation of NVIDIA, it's the RTX. So mine is not really the last generation because it's RTX 3, but it's already a good card. And you can even use your processor here, so your CPU. I recommend to use only GPU by default, and after to make tests, if when you make a render it goes quicker with your processor, usually I keep it like that. Okay, so everything else here we will not change it, we will keep it like that. The save and load, so you have here the possibility to save here the versions of your files, auto save every 2 minutes, so it should be enough when you work on something. I recommend you, when you start a file, to not keep the unsaved. I recommend you to save it somewhere into a folder, and like this it will go into the autosave. If you don't, it can be a little tricky for Blender to manage it well. And it happens that you can lose your work. So yeah, if you want to, it's the best to save it by default somewhere. And you have the file path. So by default here, it will give you to see Windows fonts for the fonts, for example. The texture, if you have textures banks already into your computer, you can use here. You can manage the folder here. Same for the sounds. Same here for the render output and things like that. So yeah, can be a little, especially for textures, it can be good to have it because textures, we will use it a lot. It depends of the task you will make with Blender, but usually textures, it's good to have it. We have the applications as well. For example, if you have an external image editor like Photoshop or GIMP or whatever, you can select the exe file in Windows and maybe the DMG in Apple. I'm not sure, but I'm sure that in Windows it will be the exe file of Photoshop, for example. And when you are into the interface of Blender with textures or things like that, you can directly change here. For example, if I manage a new texture here, okay, I will just create a new image to show you. Okay, so just a new image by default here, like that. Okay, and this image I can go there and edit externally. So if I manage the good path here into my preferences, it will go directly to Photoshop or the other software that you use. I use Photoshop for 2D, but or other softwares that you use, and it will open the image, and you can manage some tasks in Photoshop into your textures, for example, and re-import it when you save it in Photoshop. After you go there and you make a reload, and it will come back with the new texture that is reloaded. So yeah, it can be useful sometimes to have this well set with the image editor, especially. The text editor is good for scripting if you will make some scripting in Blender, but we will not make too much we will not make during this training. It's really too specific, and that's it. So it was the preferences. When everything is done and that you change something that you are sure that you don't want to change, you go there and you save preferences. By default, it will change it, but sometimes in case Blender crash or something like that, it's better to save the preferences. I will just go here into the extensions and go into the add-on, and I will search for key screencast keys here. So screencast keys is an add-on. Here we will have screencast keys. Okay, so you can see that now it's available, and it's an option that will give us here the possibility to show you directly here the shortcuts. So you see that when I make G, you will have the shortcut here. So that's it. Now I will change the colors maybe and the font, but I will make it on my side. So just to show you how it's easy to add a feature in Blender. Okay, now for the view here, we have a few things that we can change by default. I like to use different shading options. The matte cap here, it's the one I really prefer to use by default. Okay, and here I like to enable cavity like this. I see more. You see that when it's not here, you have something a little flat. Here I really see what I do with the edges, and so yeah, I prefer to work with cavity as well here. For the rest, I keep it by default here, and when you change something into this section, it's not a preference, it's just belong to your file. Okay, and you can manage Blender to open this file every time you open Blender. To do that, you go to File here, and you go to Default and Save Startup File. So now each time I open Blender, I will have this file ready to use, and I will have the same scene here, but I can change even my scene. I can add other objects or things like that, or maybe no objects. Maybe you want to start with an empty file, and it could be very good, or with an object that you use always, and here with different views here, possibilities, like for example here this matcap and everything, and like this you are sure that you open Blender with these settings here. So that's it for the preferences. We will see into the next video how to organize a scene.